Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar on group quizzes. Thanks very much for joining us on this beautiful day where I come to you from my chilly office with a little bit of sunburn from lunchtime. I hope you're all having a good day, and yeah, thank you for giving up some of your time at the end of the school day to come and look at this new feature we've developed. I always ramble a little bit at the beginning because people are coming from, playground gate duty or finishing up lessons and planning. So we normally have a couple of minutes where people come in a few minutes late, but we'll make a start shortly. So first of all, as part of the preamble, while people are joining, I'll just take you through what we're going to cover today in our webinar on group quizzes. So first of all, introduction, which we're in the middle of. We'll talk about what group quiz is about, what we're trying to do with it, what problems we're trying to solve, that teachers come to us asking, can we do this? Can we have this? And this is what we're trying to solve. Then I'll get straight onto a live run through. So the most important bit is to see what it is, how it works, and see that demo. And we'll get to that pretty quickly, how to find it on the app, how to launch one and run one in class, along with a few ideas around like how this feature, which I honestly think is about the most exciting thing we've developed in years, how this feature could absolutely transform your provision of retrieval practice in class and really bring the homework into the classroom in exciting ways. So revision sessions, plenary cover sessions. So if you're, away invigilating, or your colleagues are doing exam times, to be able to do easy lesson cover, group intervention, and so on. Then I'll get into the science of how it works for those who are interested, but I'm putting that at the end after the important bits of like, where do I find it? How does it work? And then talk about how you can get hold of group quizzes this term to run them through the summer term, because we think they're going to be absolute game changers for all sorts of reasons at this kind of unusual time of year. And then there's time for Q&A. On that point, you've got chat function in Zoom and you've got Q&A function. If you've got questions for us about aspects of group quiz or other things going on that you want help with, please put your questions in the chat and we will have time to do that at the end, I hope. So introduction, let me just get rid of this. There's something on my screen saying this is being recorded and that's in my way. Right, first of all, introductions. So I'm joined by my colleague Spencer, who is our head of marketing communications. Do you want to say hello, Spencer?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, and as Murray says, if you've got any questions, I'll try and answer them, or if not, field them to Murray at the end.
Thanks, Spencer. Yeah, and he's going to be keeping an eye on the Q&A and things like that, so he can answer some of your questions as we go along. But he's also been instrumental in the development of this kind of really exciting feature for schools. And then I'm Murray. I'm the founder of Tassomai, so I've kind of built the original platform and I'm heavily involved in the development of the product still. So that's the two of us on the call. So we should be pretty well equipped to handle any of your questions and queries. So last bit of introduction is to find a little bit about you as well. We've got a quick poll, bit of audience participation for those of you who are here and watching in real time. So Spencer, if you wouldn't mind putting that up, just interested in your role in the school as regards to Tassomai. Are you sort of SLT? Are you a head of science, a head of geography, or teaching computer science? You can obviously click multiple, and this is just so we can kind of get a feel for who's in the room right now as we present this. I mean, I already have planned to show probably a science quiz because most of our users are science, but if all of you say we teach English, then Macbeth it will be, and I will embarrass myself. I did just watch the film of Macbeth, the new one with Denzel Washington. Right, should we close that poll down, see what we've got in terms of answers? And we will move on in our presentation. Thanks very much for answering. Okay, actually, how lovely. A spread of subjects, languages, history, geography, English. We've got some science, and we've got lots of science, majority science, that's unsurprisingly, and quite a few of you from sort of SLT department leader kind of stratum. So that's really useful to know. I'm going to apologize to my humanities colleagues here because I probably will do a science quiz, but of course it's applicable. And if we've got time in the Q&A, I can put on a history one or an English one if you're interested. So sorry to be science focused, but as we've got the majority, 75% science, I think that's better. Now, I'm pointing the wrong way. We have decided to do a group quiz week. So the main takeaway from this is if you like what you see, you will be able to run these intensively in your school with your students between Tuesday and Friday next week. Correct at time of recording, basically after the bank holiday weekend, because we want lots of people doing it. This is part of our testing. We can sort of see how the feature performs, whether this causes, major server issues or whatever, and to get as much feedback as we can as well on the feature. So this is going to be on your app on Tuesday until Friday. So please make the most of it. And more importantly, or as importantly, please tell your colleagues up and down your school in other departments or within your department to log on and do it themselves as well and give it a try. And this will be recorded so you can even show them the clips of this that we'll put online. Right, so we visit schools, I talk to teachers all the time, as does Spencer, and we listen to what teachers are using Tassomai for. It's often used, if I'm going to be glib about it, as a bit of a set and forget homework. Kids have got Tassomai. We know Tassomai is doing great stuff for their retrieval practice. We tell them to do their daily goals. We leave them to it. But they also do use that data, the dots grids that sort of flashed up in artist impression, to do a bit of analysis as well. And like, where do I need to reteach? Where do I need to revise? But that data is still relatively hard to kind of get at, other than to say, oof, this class is really struggling in this area of A Christmas Carol or in this area of physics and so on. So you can get some impressionistic overview from the data that we provide. But in terms of tangible, usable, like, what can we do with this? There's still a lot of legwork that teachers need to do to convert that data into the classroom. And that's asking a lot of you when you're already so busy. So the kind of questions we get asked all the time is like, can I use the app for intervention in my lessons? I'd like to use it as a lesson starter. Often we used to have people saying, right, get your phones out and do some Tassomai quizzes while everyone's coming in or while we're settling down. Now there aren't devices, or there are fewer devices in classroom, which I'm in favor of generally. It's harder to use as a lesson starter or as a kind of a time filler if you want to work with a group of students and occupy a different group and so on. I've just finished teaching this topic. I want to go through some Tassomai questions in class, we're told, rather than just set it as a class task, as a homework. But the most common one is like one that used to frustrate me for a long time. Which question is my class getting wrong? I mean, that's an unbelievably hard question to answer because there are 26 kids in your class and different kids are getting different questions wrong. So how can I meaningfully tell you as a teacher, these are the 3 questions that you need to look at? Because inevitably they're going to be relevant to some and not relevant to others, and so on. So to try to give you the best information about where is my class struggling is actually a really challenging mathematical problem or a data analysis problem, but one that we've, I believe, cracked with this. And then how can we use Tassomai for revision without having to go and book a computer suite and tell everyone to get on and then hope they're not all kind of like on some other window doing something nefarious? Can we use Tassomai for revision in class? So the answer, there's another one, cover lessons. I've got to be away invigilating an exam or on a conference. I need cover. Cover is expensive, cover is complicated. Can we use Tassomai for cover lessons or as sort of fun lessons when it's near the end of term to meaningfully learn something without having to have the complexity of setting up cover? So if any of these things sound like familiar things that you want and we're not way off base, then hopefully we've done our market research correctly, because these are the questions that we hear or that we think we hear. Good. Okay, so and the last one, and particularly relevant to those in leadership, you'll notice these nice engagement leaderboard things that you see on your dashboard. And we're often asked now, well, how can we improve our student engagement? How can we improve our teacher engagement? This feature, Group Quiz, is an absolute teacher engagement driver, beyond, par excellence. If you get your colleagues using group quizzes, you will be in the top 1% for teacher engagement, end of story. It will also massively help student engagement too, for reasons I'll get into in the demo. So we'll do a live run through now. As I say, please do add any questions you might have as they pop up, and either Spencer will try and address them as we go, or interrupt me if there's something that I need to say that you're asking, or we'll get to them at the end. Here is a school dashboard of data. of usage data. You can see that typical spike on a Sunday when all those kids realize at 7 p.m. they haven't done their weekly goal. We're still really trying to smooth that out. And please do encourage your students to do their daily goals regularly on different days. But here I am as a teacher with certain, let's say I just want to do a group quiz for one of my classes. Let's just pick class 3. These have, by the way, fake student names, and this is on our test environment. So it'll run a little slower than it will for you in real life. Let's look at 11D3. Okay, it's early in the week when we're recording this, so not many daily goals done so far. But here are our students. Let's look at our understanding grid. And, a fairly typical view in physics, here are our students struggling with, various topics and so on. Well, I can see that, electricity and particle model are weaker topics. These are things I might want to do a group quiz in, or I might want to do one in just all of physics or all of chemistry, or indeed all of English. So for any given class, this is a foundation tier set 3. I'm going to go to the top here where it says group quiz. And that won't be visible to you if you don't have this feature switched on, most of you right now, but when you have it switched on, you'll see group quiz appears up here. So you simply click on that to set a group quiz for 11D3. Now, 11D3 is a mixed tier class. There are students in that classroom doing higher tier and others doing foundation. So you'll notice here, in that case, it's also including the higher tier students in this group quiz because we're all in the room together. You don't have to, you can exclude them if you want, but we're going to do something with the whole class. So that option there allows you to smush both classes together. Now, we're a science teacher here in the science class. So you've got biology, chemistry, physics, and you could create a group quiz covering the whole of physics, or you could open that up and choose electricity or the particle model or atomic structure and so on. So you can pick any topic you like. I'm going to actually pick waves because I like that topic. But you could even, within waves, open that out further and do a group quiz specifically on types of electromagnetic waves, for example. So you can go super fine focus or super broad focus if you want to do a pop quiz on all of physics or on all of Macbeth or on all of the Tudors. You can take a whole big topic or a small topic. I'm laboring the point. I'm going to go middle. I'm going to pick waves because that's something I like. Now, at this point, we're going to ask you a couple of questions. How long do you want this quiz to be? Between 4 questions and 12. I'm going to let's say 6 questions. Is this for the whole class or for a group of students? So we'll come back to that in a second. And then do you want to assign answer history to students or not? Let's deal with that first. If you're doing a group quiz in a class with kids, then you want to assign the answer history to the students because it means that at the conclusion of this quiz, it's going to tell Tassomai that everyone in the class has seen those questions, and it's going to then make sure those questions come up in their homework for reinforcement and practice. So it credits them with the learning you've done in class and brings it in to reinforce that learning. If, on the other hand, you're just checking it out for yourself because you want to prepare for a lesson or just play with it, don't assign the answer history to students because it will tell Tassomai that they've just seen all those questions when they haven't. So that's why we're giving you that control. So we're going to say assign answer history to students because we're pretending we're in a class. Now let's say we're going to select students. Rather than everyone being there, let's say Rachel and Deborah are off sick and Gary and Michael are in an exam, so you can exclude them. Or you could even deselect everyone and just say, I just want to do an intervention quiz with these six students while the rest get on with a worksheet, or so on and so on. What's lovely about this is the quiz that is built will be tailored to the specific students you're including. So if you're only doing it for those 6, it will pick out the problem questions for those 6. If you're doing it for the whole class, sans whoever was off sick, then it will build it for those ones. So let's select those students. And we begin group quiz. Now it's going to compile. This might take a while, especially as it's running on our, that was quick, running on our background server. And I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. Now what we're going to have here is a quiz of 6 questions I think I asked for on the topic of waves, the whole topic. And it's going to be bringing up to me the 6 questions that my class most need to work on. Now, why is that? First of all, this question has been seen by about 60% of them. Good maths there. 58, 59, whatever, 56% of them. It's been seen by more than half of them. And their accuracy on this question is 72%. Not bad, but the national accuracy is 80%. So these guys are 8% below national average in this question, which is odd. And quite a lot of them have seen it. So we feel this is a priority. They're underperforming it, and it's quite well seen. So that's a problem. All right. So common use for infrared waves, well, it's infrared is a kind of heat signature. It's given off as electromagnetic light. So, heat radiators emit infrared, night vision goggles use infrared. I think both of these is the answer. So if I'm not sure as a teacher as well, or I'm not totally sure, I'm not going to embarrass myself, I can just reveal the answer if I want and move on. But in a classroom setting, you could ask them to vote. You could hands up for B, hands up for A, and so on. But also, you can even bring up students of the 15 who've seen it, and you get this like cold calling roulette. Michael, Alicia, and Jason have all seen this question at some point in the past, and we can see what their most recent answers are. So you could ask Alicia, do you remember this? Did you get it right? Did you get it wrong? So she said heat radiators, 2-bar fires. Do we agree with it? Right, all truth. So you can. There's an element of like name and shame risk, of course. You may not want to do that, but you can also, really incorporate, feature. Students say it's really nice to be able to see what someone else answered and discuss it in a kind of collegiate way. So I hope that's how you'd see this too. Right, I think it's both of these, and I agree with Michael and Jason in this case. But you also know Dustin hasn't seen it, so you could ask him to vote on it, for example. All right, let's move on. Now you'll notice that is a super easy question. In fact, 80% of them are getting it right nationally, only 20% getting it wrong. Well, so the reason that's come up first is that once we've compiled your 6-question quiz, we're going to go in order from easiest to hardest so that you get a bit of a ramp up. So the initial questions you'll see might be quite trivial. So we've got it right, we move on. And you could carry on. Which way do you draw the ray diagrams and so on? So we're kind of pointing away from the light source. Again, this is a slightly harder question, slightly lower success. But in this case, accuracy is quite a long way below national average accuracy. And you've got quite a few students who haven't seen this question. So again, we're picking questions that maybe need to be practiced because they haven't been seen and so on. All right, I'm going to get out of this quiz now and not kind of keep going with it because I feel like I'll just quickly show you that again. Random draw. Let's see what Marcus said. Oh, he got it right. Or did he? No, he got it wrong. Wasn't reading the question. Andrea got it right. Johnny also got it right. Okay, so just a fun feature like that. Right, I'm going to get rid of that and go back to my presentation. But hopefully that's given you an idea of how to find it. You go to the class, you click on group quiz, and then you pick your topic from the whole subject, from a subtopic, or from a superfine topic. You launch it, and you can use that chat roulette, sort of Russian roulette sort of thing to bring up names and so on to kind of bring in some cold calling. That's what I'm trying to think of. Great. So that's how it works. That's what it is. Let's move on to applications of it. So first of all, lesson starters. I think a really nice way of doing this is, especially if you just come to the end of a topic, before you move on to the next thing, you can say, right, we're just going to, or maybe you're in the middle of a topic, we're just going to do a lesson starter on the thing we've been doing for the last week or so, bring up some Tassomai questions and discuss them in class, have a bit of a voting session. It's a kind of a fun starter, especially if people are kind of slow to gear up for a lesson. But what's lovely about that as well is that then, having done the lesson starter, that quiz is credited to every student's answer history and will then mean the likelihood is greater that those questions come up in prep, in homework ongoing. So it brings that homework in. But then the virtuous circle is, as they do their homework practice in the evenings, on their Tassomai to do their daily goals and weekly goals, the errors they make then feed back in to the group quizzes you might use as lesson starters at the next lesson. So it's kind of got that virtuous circle. So recap, precap, you just finished atomic structure, you just finished Act 2 of Macbeth. You can kind of use that to recap, or you could start the Act 3 group quiz of Macbeth to kind of pre-cap what you're about to go into, sort of ask people what they know about Act 3 so far from some of these questions, what they've seen on Tassomai, and then go into the lesson from there. So really nice kind of like purpose of a lesson starter, really, to think like that. Now we've got year 11s hopefully still coming in for revision sessions and so on prior to the GCSEs. This is obviously the #1 application for this at this time. We're all, I mean, if I remember what it was like being in school, desperately worried about my year 11s of, are they going to remember all the stuff we've been through? Have they been practicing? Are they doing good revision? Well, you can get them in for revision lessons in class and just run these all day long and pick up what's going on, talk about questions that are going that you know they're making persistent errors with and or not seeing, and really hit those sort of problematic points, specifically where they are answering with a lower accuracy than the national average of the other year 11s. But it's a great way of sort of kicking off some revision sessions and saying, okay, we're focusing on you know, flame tests. Let's do one on that, and then we'll do some worksheets. So, plenary, you know, similar to kind of recap, you've just finished teaching a particular topic. You could end the lesson with a 4 or 5 question group quiz for the class on that specific area of the syllabus you've just done, just to kind of, it's a ready to go pop quiz, end of lesson thing as they're sort of starting to fatigue. You can do that as a kind of way of waking them up and involving them, and that kind of cold calling thing is, as you know, the kind of Doug Lemov approach, if you like, of just like making sure everyone's on their toes, because they could be called to answer that question at any time. It's a nice way of making sure they're involved. Cover lesions, almost, sorry about my mistype there. Cover lessons. I'm going to put my head in front of that typo. If you are unable to teach a lesson, or you've got a colleague who's sick, I'm going to just go back to the demo here. Here's a teacher who maybe doesn't have many classes in year 10 science. Oh, we've got loads. Doesn't have many in year 11 science. I'm not teaching any year 11s, but this colleague is in and I'm away. I can say, can you log in? Can you cover my lesson, log into Tassomai and do some group quizzes with my class? All you've got to do is untick this box that says only show my classes. And now you can see every class. There's some year 13s. Let's go year 11 science. Now I can see all those classes and I'm covering for my colleague doing top set. I can go there and launch a group quiz. There we go, for the whole set, and run some lessons as troubleshooting. So you could say, I'm off, I've got to invigilate an exam. Could you please log into your Tassomai for my class and do a group quiz on waves, do a group quiz on cell biology. Great, you know. I'm really embarrassed about that typo, sorry. And group intervention, as I mentioned, you can, within a class, just select 3 or 4 or 5 kids that you know maybe from the dots grid are struggling in an area, and then pull out a quiz that is specific to their needs. As it compiles the quiz, it is analyzing the answers of the students involved. So you can tailor this right down. I actually think that's phenomenally powerful, and the kind of thing that just would take so much work to prepare as a teacher. We've got all the data to do that for you in 10 seconds. So we think that's pretty exciting. Okay, speaking of things I think is exciting, the maths. So I'm going to get into that. If you want to, slope off or whatever, I'm not going to blame you, but I'll make this quick. And, this is going to be a 4-dimensional graph. So there's that. Okay, here's how we tried to solve this problem. What we're looking at when you say we'd like a group quiz for this class in cell biology, we look at all their answers in that topic, and we look at the accuracy of the answers, and we look at the proportion of students in the class who have seen each question. So you got question 1, everyone's seen it and nobody's got it right. That would be up there. Everyone's seen it and everyone's got it right. That would be up there. And, half the people have seen it, half of them have got it right, so on. So we're looking at their accuracy on the answers given versus the proportion of the class who've seen it, and we build this little heat map. I should also say we're only looking at students' most recent couple of answers. So as they make corrections, they can overturn their score and move to 100% like they do on the app. All right. So we're looking at that kind of grid and saying, in terms of priority, This question is the highest priority, the thing that everyone's seen and everyone's got wrong. And this is the lowest priority, the thing that everyone's seen and everyone's got right. And somewhere in the middle are the questions that some have seen and those who have seen it are all getting wrong, or not many people have seen and their accuracy is like okay, and so on. So we've got that kind of curve through this two-dimensional graph. You'll notice as well, there's a sort of line of symmetry here, the yellow line at 0, which is our kind of normal accuracy. So this is a question that is very hard. Only 20% of people are getting this question right on average. So it's a super, super tough question. Now, what if the question's easier? Well, the map sort of shifts. So as you look at easier questions that are globally answered more accurately, this is the third dimension of our graph here. The fourth dimension is the color. Sorry. As you get easier and easier questions, then the heat map sort of shifts. So what we're actually trying to do is find questions all of an equivalent difficulty or an equivalent redness to pull out of the whole pool of questions. So if we take a relatively hard set of questions versus an easy question, you'll see that for this easy question that 90% of people get right, and this hard question that only 20% of people get right, this pool of questions here is of equivalent priority to this whole pool of questions here. And if at anything further towards the corner here, that's much more important than there's an easy question that everyone's seen and only 20% are getting right. That's much more urgent than this very hard question that everyone's seen and only 10% are getting right, because the rest of the country are doing much better on this question. There's a clear problem there. Oh, shifted on. So that's the kind of maths of what's going on. So we're doing that analysis on every question in every topic for your class and for the entire year group. We're only comparing them to other people in the same year group. So year 9s aren't being compared to year 11s and so on. And that's how we then pull out, right, which are the questions that need most attention. But as I said, when you're in the quiz, we then structure them from what is globally easiest to hardest within the quiz. So the quiz kind of ramps up and it feels a little bit welcoming at the beginning. So don't get put off that the first question is trivial. It's a trivial question that some of your students are making silly mistakes on. All right, that's the end of the maths bit. Okay, right. How can you get group quizzes this term? So next week, everyone can get group quizzes. Please tell your colleagues and please tell yourself to log in to your Tassomai account in class and go open a group quiz and pick one and run with it in the class and have a play with it and give us feedback. Tell us, oh, it's really slow to load, or it was, I mean, even on our dev server, that was pretty quick. I don't understand this, or I'd really like it to do that. Easy on that one, please. It's really hard developing this stuff. I really, the kids really, this is what we want to hear. The kids really loved how X, Y, Z happened. Or we really like how it's saving us so much time in year 11 revision. We think it's going to be like lots of compliments, please, but also constructive negative feedback or requests, because this is a feature that's going to be live on the platform in September, and we've got time to make a few tweaks. For example, we're looking at making these launchable from the dots grid. So that's a pretty obvious thing to do, really. Here's the dots, here's a column of orange, launch a quiz. So you got that kind of thing. Okay. I'm seeing some questions pop up. Please do add questions if you've got any, because we're coming to the end. So you will all have access for the next calendar week, and then you won't. Why is that? Because we're working on it. We're still doing research on it. It's not quite ready for full launch, but this is going to be a useful time to gather feedback. But we do want a few schools using it, and we want to reward the schools that are being as engaged as possible with us. This is where we twist your arm a little bit to say, if you want group quizzes for the whole of the summer term, really help out your year 11s, really help out your year 10s, whose teachers are going to be running around with their hair on fire, like mine has been, dealing with exam weeks and so on. If you want this in class to really help out with cover lessons and revision and all those things, then here's what you need to do. You need to be signed up to Tassomai for next year, when this will be a feature on the platform for everyone. So please do get signed up with your renewal. You will have had emails about getting your Tassomai renewal in. We're a small business and we run at cost. So these things really matter to us and our ability to sustain what we're doing. We're not a big money bags business with millions of pounds in the bank. So your commitment to us to continue next year and back this kind of approach with your usage counts for a huge amount for us and allows us to keep developing what we think is the best, most powerful EdTech tool that you can have that's on the market. So yeah, talk to us about what you plan to do with it next year as well. So if you're thinking about using it in other subjects, thinking about taking up our new amazing maths course in your maths department, you have to talk to your maths colleagues, obviously. Whatever you want, like if you've got in mind, we want to use it with these year groups, we're using it this way. That conversation is really helpful for us to make sure we're delivering what you need in terms of provision, in terms of how it works and what we're building for you. To do that, you need to contact my colleague Artie, ARTI at tassomai.com. She's your main point of contact around getting this switched on. She is the one who has the massive red lever that she can pull to switch these on for you permanently. So, have a chat with her and so on. Another quick poll for those of you who are still here and not drive. If you're driving, don't answer the poll. Obviously, if you're already on your way home and you're on the M5, you're excused. But we'd like to know where you're at with this. Like, if you're here, is this because you've already renewed and you want to know how this is going to work? Is it that you intend to, but you haven't got round to it, or the email has fallen behind a wardrobe and you need it to be sent again, or something like that? Or maybe you're not actually using Tassomai right now and you've heard about this from posts we've put online and you'd like to know. There's another aspect, which is you may have just signed up to Tassomai. Your renewal may not be till February, and you're like, well, hang on, we can't renew. It's like 8 months time, 10 months away. So that's a fourth category there. Just interested to know where you are at in terms of that sort of journey. As I say, all options are there. We want to get everyone using this, but we want to also make sure schools are committed to using Tassomai next year. So talk to Artie and we'll, I'm sure, be able to make something work for you. Yeah, let's finish with that poll. Thank you for those of you who answered it. Useful for us to be able to see what that is. Yeah, okay, so a good chunk of you, went before I can see, a good chunk, thank you, Spencer, it's back. A good chunk of you are already up and running and renewed for next year, so you should have this thing switched on already, probably. If you don't, let us know. Lots of you not yet renewed for next year, but I hope, please put in comments or in questions like, this is looking great. I'm definitely going to talk to my head teacher about getting this renewal through. Sorry, I sound like a salesperson. I'm not. I mean, as you can tell. So it's a bit of a mix there. So, but this is your call to action. Get in touch with Artie, start the conversation, and we can sort of get this thing running. But in the meantime, as I say, you will have this freely available next week. So use it or lose it. Use it as much as you can, get your colleagues to use it. Did I say, this is really important if you're SRT, the school engagement ranking on your dashboard, that thing there that ranks student and teacher engagement, the teacher engagement is predicated upon what proportion of the teachers in your department have logged in each day and done one thing on Tassomai, even if it's just log in. So if your colleagues all set one group quiz every day, you will be the top school in the country overnight. But I mean, these things have a kind of it's a rolling ranking over a few weeks, so you'll see it climb up, but it will massively improve your teacher ranking and quite probably improve your student ranking because they are getting credited with doing these quizzes too. So if you care about your ranking and you want to get from the top 13% to the top 5%, use group quiz. It's a silver bullet. It's a bit of a cheat, but a good cheat, I think. That is the end of my rambling, and we can get into some questions. I see lots of chat and questions have come up. I'm dyslexic and I can't read and talk at the same time. So I'm hoping Spencer, who's still here, is going to be able to ask me some questions to answer. And I'm going to have a drink of water. So cheers.
Hi. Yeah, I've been sort of trying to answer a few of them as we go along. But Linda was asking about the dots grid. I've just shared a link to the page on the website for that one. I think probably not that time for you to go over exactly what the dots grid is, but maybe you just want to sum it up in a line.
Very briefly. I can. If you'll excuse it being a science one, the dots grid shows the level of understanding of the material of students in the class. So your columns are the topic areas and the rows are your students. And each dot is a rag rating grid. So blue means like barely putting a foot wrong. Blue is brilliant. Green is good. Orange is all right. And red is requires improvement. So it's an accuracy measure. But the other aspect is how big the dot is. So that shows how much of the content they've seen. And that's important because a tiny blue dot here from Elizabeth, well, indicates, well, she's answered very well in the first couple of questions, but she's done very little of that topic. So it's not all that significant. Whereas this bigger blue dot is cause for a lot more kind of celebration. Meanwhile, this big red dot is again cause for concern. So the size of the dot is how much they've seen. The color of the dot is their accuracy. Now, the great thing is Tassomai is reacting to these dots in real time through the ongoing practice quizzing they're giving. Every quiz is designed to try to make a red dot turn orange or an orange dot turn green. So as a teacher, all you really need to do is encourage your students to use Tassomai daily, not in a weekly binge, and to make an effort to try to correct their mistakes and answer with accuracy. If they're doing that, Tassomai will do the rest. But this allows you to really dig in and do some intervention, especially if in a couple of weeks, you're able to hit a button here and go, launch group quiz on energy changes. Let's sort out this orange column of orange and red dots. Okay, so that's the dots grid, and it applies in history and geography and computer science and every other side, maths, every other subject we do, we analyze the data like that. I could also say, Elizabeth here, Elizabeth has that data represented as a tree, which, if you're not familiar, I think is a lovely way of presenting Elizabeth's strengths and weaknesses in this case, physics, where each question, each leaf is a question. That's a question she's getting wrong. This is generally a nice, healthy looking green branch, which is the topic of forces. She's doing very nicely in forces, and she's struggling in this topic here. So students as well can analyze this data in their tree, which grows over time and hopefully looks more and more green as they master material. All right, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. Sorry.
Yeah, there was a couple that were a little bit more sort of specific to people's own deals, but someone was asking about renewal date. Jessica, we can tell you when your renewal date is, but we'd have to talk to you separately about that because we need to look it up or get someone else in the team to check.
Just talk to Artie.
Just get in touch or talk to Artie. Matt was asking about the subscription package and whether maths was included, and I was saying that if they have 2 core subjects already, then maths isn't included. But again, it's a bit complicated to get into the detail of that one here. So feel free to drop us a line. We'll have
yeah, please do. Is it Matt? Please do drop us a line about the maths because we've overhauled maths. We're really excited about our maths product for next year, and we're not quite sure exactly what we're doing with it in terms of pricing and so on, but we plan to be extremely competitive with it. But we're particularly interested in getting schools on board to trial our new maths product, which has new questions, new teaching videos. It's more kind of fitting with the way maths teachers want to use EdTech in terms of setting exercises rather than letting it just like run wild with retrieval quizzing. So we think that maths product is going to be very exciting. So please do get in touch if you're interested, and we can talk about setting something up for you and figure something out.
Just a couple of people asking about some of the stuff about group quiz. So just to clarify, Sean was saying we've renewed for next year already, but can't see group quizzes. Shall I email Artie? So yes, so you don't automatically get access. If you've renewed, you have to go to the link on our blog and just fill in a short form there just to confirm that you want group quiz. But next week, everyone will have group quiz. So it will be on for everyone for a week, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll take your word for that, Spencer, because Spencer is much better than me about the details. But I would have thought that if you've got your renewal sorted, it should be switched on. So please do fill out that form on the blog, of course. But also drop Artie a line and go, I can't see it. Can we have it? And she'll make sure it's sorted one way or another.
And Jennifer was asking if this recording is going to be available for other departments. So yes, I'm going to try and get it onto our YouTube channel probably this evening, if not tomorrow. And we'll send an email around about it with a link as well later in the week or early next week so that everyone has it for group quiz week.
Thank you, Spencer. And yes, if you want you mentioned other departments, and if you've got in mind sort of training, like here's how you do it kind of thing, we'll hopefully try and kind of clip the vital bits out of this. We have lots of short videos as well on how to launch group quizzes and so on. And I might make a kind of pithier one that just gets straight to the point, that you can share, Spencer, with people who are interested, if that's going to be helpful. But also, I or my colleague Chris be very happy to do a dial into a group departmental meeting or something to kind of talk it through with you, because we're on hand to help however you might need. So just get in touch.
Right, just checking if there's any more. Matt was asking if we're planning to expand the number of subjects on Tassomai. So we're not really planning any more at the moment. We've already got about 11, depending on how you sort of count things like English and whether it's 1 or 2 subjects. But Murray thinks 2, yeah.
2 GCSEs,
Are we
right?
planning any more? Any more in the pipeline?
We are asked often about a few things: PE, philosophy and ethics, religious studies. We toy with it, and things like driving theory and stuff that are non-critical. But in reality, the economics of it are difficult for a company at our size to make it work. So we are not planning on doing any new subjects in the near future, certainly not for next September. But we will always be kind of looking into it and trying to reevaluate it. What we also think is we're kind of hitting all the, no offense, but we're kind of hitting all the big ones in terms of, like, EBAC 5 GCSE. We've got English and literature, we've got maths, we've got biology, chemistry, physics, we've got geography, history. And if you gave one student all of those subjects plus computer science and modern foreign languages, it's too much. So there's a limit to how much a student can be expected to use Tassomai. So it's really diminishing returns for us. And we are a small company that's funded only by our revenue. We have to move slowly, I think, on these things. So there aren't plans right now to do too many more subjects in the next year or so, anyway. We are adding things like new history topics. We just did the interwar years. That's now on for AQA. We add English literature texts as we go through. So we have a really diverse range of texts available that cover most needs for most syllabuses, but there are always a few more. For some reason, we never got around to Journey's End. So, I suppose that would be the last one we do. I mean, whatever. Okay. So, we are continually overhauling, updating, expanding on our content within our subjects, but I think unlikely that we'll have a new subject in the next year.
Yeah, Jennifer was asking about post 16, which isn't an area we focus on too much, although we do. Sometimes schools use some AS level content we've got for science, don't they?
Yes, we do have some. Again, it's just difficult, a company our size, to make it work economically. But we do have some. So if you are interested, please get in touch. We often give people the AS stuff as a sort of free bolt on, because we did write the material, but it's not really complete as a solution in the same way as the GCSE is. And Key Stage 3, we do have Key Stage 3, which schools get a lot of use out of. I should say as well, group quizzes are available for all levels in all subjects. So it's not restricted to just science and English or just Key Stage 4 and so on. If there aren't other questions, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Just would like to say thank you very much all for attending, and I hope you can get out into the sun now. Do really appreciate your attention, and we'd love to hear from you, feedback. I hope you find this appealing and exciting as a product. Please use it next week when it's available. And if I could ask a real favor, if you like what you see and you feel it's useful, anything you can say to colleagues within your school or in other schools or on social media, so saying we're using this thing and it's pretty awesome. It makes a world of difference to a company like ours to just try and kind of keep going and keep developing and providing new things, because the support of you as teachers means the world to us. This is why we're doing it. A lot of us are ex-teachers. A lot of us are just doing it to try to make your lives easier and help your students get better outcomes. So I hope we're on the right thread here, but your positive feedback is really, really valuable to us. So we're very grateful if you can do anything like that. We're always grateful. So thank you.